Fading slowly from a black screen, we hear one side of a cell phone conversation. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, baby, I'm listening. Exterior Phoenix Barrio at dusk. Jamar Wexley, 30s, dark-skinned, handsome, strong, rides shotgun in an unmarked vehicle, idling like a lion watching a herd of antelope, while pretending to listen to his future ex-wife. Wex lowers his binoculars and types on the MDT. He inputs the license plate of the car they're watching across the street. The MDT beeps, the police radio jumps to life, the dispatcher's voice interrupting the conversation. 571 X-ray, you code 4 on that 487 Victor. His partner, Jimmy O'Brien, 30s, sharp, all-American, responds calmly. Code 4, we figured it was stolen. We'll be code 6 with that vehicle in a minute on Granada, just east of 16th Street. As the stolen vehicle pulls out from the Circle K, Jimmy guides their Navy Chevy Tahoe into traffic, northbound on 16th and eastbound on Granada, getting behind the once gold 2004 Oldsmobile Alero. Jimmy lights it up and the car pulls over. The officers open their doors quietly and wait a moment while they observe. They exit their vehicle, pause behind their open doors, then make their way toward the rear of the Alero. This is intense, but these two are seasoned warriors. Of course, Wex still holds his phone to his ear as he approaches. Jimmy notices the driver's not put the car in park. Brake lights. Yep, he's taken off. Then, no, sorry, baby, I was talking to Jimmy. Jimmy, reaching out, placing his hand on the rear corner of the trunk. No, he's cool, he's cool. All at once, the Alero jumps to life with a roar, tires screaming, taking off. Our heroes laugh as they sprint back to the Tahoe. It's on. Jimmy hits the lights and sirens and smokes the Tahoe's tires as he accelerates the big vehicle into the middle of the residential street after the fleeing Alero. Wex, into the radio. 571 X-ray, we got that vehicle taken off at a high rate of speed, eastbound Granada from 16. Jimmy, you should probably hang up that phone. Oh, yeah. 571 X-ray, copy, checking for an air unit. Listen, baby, you're right about all those things you said. I'm sorry. I suck. You're awesome. You're right, I suck. See you later. Air 5, we copy, but we're heading in, running low on gas. Man, do they ever have gas? The Tahoe bounces and bucks over the beat-up asphalt as it closes in on the Alero. Kids stand on the sidewalk in front of a small apartment complex watching. The Alero runs over a soccer ball, which 10 seconds earlier was being passed by two chiquititos in the street. Jimmy grabs the radio, turns off the siren before clearing in a bored voice. Be advised, we are not pursuing. This is not a pursuit per policy. We are traveling the speed limit while keeping an eye on the suspect. Wex laughs as Jimmy mashes the gas and the Tahoe eats up the gap between it and the Alero up the block. Then the Alero's brake lights flash and the Alero slows quickly. We see the driver reach across toward the passenger. What's he doing? Is he? No, don't do it. Just then, we see the driver reach across, open the passenger door, and throw a 20-something-year-old female out of the moving car as she tumbles painfully to a stop. Keep going, man. We gotta catch him. No, we gotta check her. Screeches the Tahoe to a stop. Go, go, go. Wex jumps out, moves towards her. I'll be fine. Stomps the gas pedal. Wex's door slams shut, and Jimmy's back on the chase. Wex, no! Gets on his portable. 571 X-ray Adam, I'm out with the injured passenger who was just thrown from the vehicle at about 19 in Granada. Have the next units haul ass to my partner eastbound toward the overpass bridge at 20th. Jimmy, bombing down the street now, can see the Alero moving fast toward the end of the street where it ends at the T of 20th Street. Then he catches a break as the Alero enters the turn way too fast, loses traction, and wrecks into the wall. Jimmy slows his approach. 571 X-ray vehicle just wrecked at 20th Street in the wall of 51. We can make out the shirtless driver suspect step out of the car and look up at the approaching Tahoe, holding a handgun. As we get closer, we see his 30s, Hispanic, hulking, and bald with brutal amounts of prison ink from his forehead down to his low-riding black pants. Jimmy slows his vehicle 50 yards away. Don't do it, man. Suspect points his gun at Jimmy's vehicle, pulls the trigger, and nothing. He tries to yank back the slide, but if you never take care of your gun, the suspect turns away from Jimmy and looks behind him. Jimmy slides the Tahoe to an angle while somehow simultaneously unlocking his Colt M4 rifle from between the seats. He's out behind the engine block of the Tahoe, pointing his rifle in an instant. We get a good look at Jimmy, the definition of squared away. Drop it now, you won't get another chance. Through his aim-point red dot sight, framing the driver's center mass, we see the driver throw the jammed gun up over the overpass wall and onto the highway above. He looks at Jimmy, then turns and runs. No, you don't. Throwing his rifle onto the passenger seat, Jimmy jumps behind the wheel. The Tahoe launches toward the T. 571 X-ray, suspect running northbound 20 from Granada. I'll need a unit to secure the wreck. Be advised, suspect was armed with a black handgun, may still be armed. He steers the Tahoe around the corner with the driver running up the middle of the street ahead of him. Driver looks back, then brakes left between a house and a small apartment building. Jimmy's out of the Tahoe and running hard, dodging urban obstacles and hurdling fences like an American Ninja Warrior. Takes a wide arc around the corner, sees the driver still running and holding something in his right hand. Jimmy draws his Glock 22, lines up his front and rear sights. Drop and get on the ground now! Again, driver looks back and tosses the small dark object over the typical Phoenix cinder block wall into the next building. He runs through the back patio of the apartment building, then stops. Dead end. Brick building on his left, block wall in front and on his right, and Jimmy coming up behind him. He turns and sizes up the cop. The suspect likes his chances, shows his empty hands down on his sides. We get a good look at his eyes, which aren't seeing the world like a normal human's. You can't shoot me, pig. Jimmy holsters his Glock without taking his eyes off the bad guy, grabs his taser X26 out of his chest holster, points it at the suspect's chest. We hear sirens approaching. Nope, but I can stop you. Jimmy flips the on switch of the taser, but there is no laser. Murphy's Law, dead battery. Shit. Those things don't work on me. I'm gonna effing kill you. Suspect balls his fists, walks with a purpose directly at Jimmy. At the last second, when he's 3 feet away from trying to rip the pig apart, Jimmy tosses the taser into the air toward the suspect. He's distracted for a half second and instinctively catches the taser. Simultaneously, Jimmy explodes a compact left hook precisely into the goodnight button of the suspect's jaw. He crumbles to the ground, lights out. Jimmy calmly into the mic, somehow. 571 X-ray, it's code 4 here, 1 in custody. Everybody can slow it down. Jimmy handcuffs the sack of potatoes, conducts a quick pat-down for weapons. Sirens wailing as they arrive out front. We hear footfalls running fast and hear Wex's voice before we see him come around the corner, followed by a salty-looking female officer and a big young officer in training. Wex, out of breath, disappointed there's no more action. Oh, come on, Jimmy! 571 X-ray, code 4 in custody at 1846 hours. All units can slow down in 1022. Do we have a motor officer who can help out 571 X-ray with that accident? The backup officer on scene into her mic. 522 Tom, we're here. My rookie will take that wreck. Then to Jimmy. Super cop does it again, huh? No fun for the rest of us? Jimmy says, sorry guys. Hey Wex, how's his girl? Pretty banged up. Some of it looks like it happened before Romeo threw her out of a moving vehicle. Jimmy, good job taking care of her. Do me a favor. I'll stay with him if you can get someone to find that gun he threw onto the 51. Then we need someone to find what he threw into this yard behind us. After seeing his eyes, I'm going to guess it's a little box of meth. Right on cue, the suspect comes to, rolls over, groans, ay, hijo de puta. The officer in training, OIT, eager to impress Jimmy and Wex, moves to get the suspect to his feet. Now, wait a second, Wex says. Yeah, bro, you probably want to give him a minute before he butts. The rookie has already picked him up, and the suspect promptly pukes his guts out all over both his and the rookie's boots. All senior officers say they always do that. So that is basically a one-man table read of the opening scene from a pilot spec script I wrote called Community Relations. From there, some loud music would play, cut to black screen, a bunch of title screens, and cast, and all the rest of it. You guys see enough Netflix that you know these action shows and the recipe for success. As you may have already guessed, woven into this fictional story are real-life action sequences based on events that actually happened. I know because I was there. So the last couple weeks as I was thinking and talking to God about this opportunity to come and speak to you guys, this moment kept popping into my head for some reason. Serving in law enforcement was one chapter of my life, and acting and writing is another. But it's dawned on me that this event is a pretty interesting illustration of 3 guideposts that I have learned over and over to be critical for us as men. So the first one, be prepared. When this happened, my face of life was a lot different than it is now. I basically went to work every night to hunt for bad guys. That was my job. So I knew that there was a chance of something like this happening every shift, that I could end up running or climbing or shooting or fighting or adrenaline and critical decision making. So my physical preparation reflected all of that. It certainly doesn't anymore. Now life looks much different, so training is much different. The point of preparation and training is this. In moments of unpredictability or physical, mental stress and strain, we revert back to our training. We rely upon our preparation. We're only as good as our readiness. So I was no super cop. I'm no superhero. I was a normal guy, but I trained a lot. In fact, had I stopped to think about this event, I may have done things differently. But I trained a lot, and as the scene kept unfolding, I had the habits and muscle memory built up from countless repetitions. And all of that training took over. Believe it or not, this preparedness, or lack thereof, presents itself in our lives way more than we may realize. So I see this be prepared in three ways: physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. These are all connected, by the way. If you're healthy and prepared in two of these ways, then you're only 66% of the way there. So these three things are connected. Be prepared physically. Obviously, in this illustration, I had to run, jump, drive fast, speak understandably, aim a weapon calmly, and ultimately take down a man who wanted to kill me. I'm very grateful I had spent the time preparing, so I did not have to waste a moment thinking about, do I have those capabilities in my engine, in my gas tank? For us, what are the expected demands physically in your day today? Maybe not much for me, maybe not much, right? What are the demands that could pop up in your life today? Maybe that 1 in 10 moment, or God forbid, that 1 in a million moment. What demands could be placed on your life today? Here's a quick example. Every time I travel, you guys may travel maybe more than me. Every time I travel, I sit in the airport and I watch that person run down the hallway. They may be carrying way too much luggage, maybe carrying a child, maybe carrying way too much weight, but it's always a struggle. It's a terrible feeling, right? When you're late for a plane and you have to run. Are you capable of running? A lot of time, most of the time, that poor person is not. Not saying that happens every day, but that could pop up in our day, or much worse. There's some other motivations, less tragic or less stressful, for being prepared physically. Playing with your kids, living with less pain, being around longer, God willing, or maybe just looking better for your wife. At its simplest, physical preparation is all about habits. Good and bad. We all have them. One thing I've learned, both personally and with countless people I've helped, it's almost impossible to just break a bad habit. That's really, really hard. Our willpower is actually stronger, our habits are actually stronger than our willpower. But it is possible to replace a bad habit with a good habit. Here's a quick example. Say you stop every morning on your way to work and you stop at Spunky Dunkers and you get 2 big Danishes and a macchiato. You've been doing this for months, maybe years. And at our age, I'm 47 years old. If you've been doing that for years and you gain maybe 2 pounds a year, maybe 3 pounds a year, by the end of 5 years, you look and you feel different, right? All of a sudden on Tuesday morning, you decide you should not intake all that sugar. So can you just drive past Spunky Dunkers without the sugar and the caffeine, and your willpower will be enough? Maybe. For me, probably not. More likely, in order to achieve this change of habits, you have to substitute something better to take the place, to fill that habit, to fill that void. Maybe it's black coffee and a Cliff Bar. There's caffeine and there's something sweet, and that's how our mind works. So replacing a bad habit with a good habit. One more quick tip here. I have way too many in the fitness and the training space, so I have to cut myself off. I find 2 weeks to be a pretty magic number for building a habit. If you can do something consistently for 2 weeks, it becomes a habit. If you do that habit for about a month more, it starts to become your lifestyle. And that's where we want to get to. As in, maybe after it becomes your lifestyle, you can't start your day without a little bit of a workout. Or you schedule your lunchtime jog with the strictness, and you protect that as strongly as the most important meeting in your day, because it could be. All right, that's be prepared physically. Be prepared mentally and emotionally. This is a tough one in a room full of men. Again, in our cop scene, was I prepared mentally, emotionally? I'd say yes and no. Cops, especially guys like me who worked on tactical units and worked in a lot of interesting situations, become very good at compartmentalization. Maybe some of us in this room are experts at compartmentalization. We put it in a box. We stuff it away. We go home at the end of the night and we don't ever talk about it again. More than anything, cops laugh a lot. They used to call it a front row seat to the best show on earth. And you laugh a lot because what else can you do? If you internalize some of those terrible things you see, then it'll eat you alive. So we laughed a lot. But I'm finding now that in a lot of those events, there are pictures that are still in here. It's a weird place. I know some men in here understand that from phases of your life. These two are extra connected, that mental and emotional. Don't we feel that our mental health is tied to our emotional reactions and vice versa? How do we prepare ourselves better mentally and emotionally? One is connection. I loved when PJ was telling me about this men's fraternity, and sitting at the table is actually a priority for guys in this room, because connection. It's rare for us as men to actually connect. We men can be actually very bad at connecting with other humans. It's a real feeling to be lonely. This way of being can go on for a certain amount of time, but eventually we go through something and we all need some help. If we wait until we need someone to find someone, it's too late. Here's an interesting one. Counseling and therapy. It's very quiet in here. I get it. I'm Irish. I was born in the 70s. I was an athlete and into the sport of martial arts, and I was a cop, and I'm Irish. So therapy was not a word in my vocabulary for 45 years. And then a year and a half ago or so, and I knew that this was going on for a while, but I started to feel bad for my kids and my wife who were walking on eggshells anytime that they dropped something accidentally, or slammed a cabinet accidentally, or let a door slam accidentally. And I would jump through the roof or yell out, and I had a hard time bringing my alert level back down. Sirens, same thing for me. So PTSD is a real thing, whether you step on a landmine in Afghanistan, or could be some folks in this room have something that you think is less significant. That's just one example. So I did the least prideful thing of my life and reached out to a Christian counselor. It's been over a year since I have been meeting with David almost weekly. Now it's honestly not even about the PTSD. It's a breath of fresh air every week for me. One of the only hours of my week when I put my phone down and actually talk and connect. And think about it. How often do you actually sit, be still for a bit, and talk openly and honestly with anyone? As a man, as a father, as a husband, as a coworker. The point is, by putting in actual effort and intentional time into our mental, emotional health, we are preparing ourselves to react better to the unpredictability of life. It's all about how we react. We can't control life, but we do have a control over how we react. And then third is spiritually. This one is pretty simple. In our illustration, when I was working on the street and in moments like that, I talked to God all day long. I had no choice. Anyone who says they never get scared is probably best being avoided. Avoid that person. Of course, the stuff is scary, and you get a bit tighter when you're heading to anything that is a known risk. But I also always felt like I was in the middle of God's will for my life at the time. And no matter where you are, if you feel like you're in the middle of God's will, that's the safest place you could be. So how about us? How to be prepared spiritually, and why? Because the world will try everything it can to make you question your relationship with God. You guys are all likely churchgoers, and you're already likely convinced of this, seeing as how you woke up extra early this morning to get here. So good job. I'll just encourage you with this. We never know what is coming. That's the fun and terror of life. In our society, our culture today, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but it's getting crazier and crazier. If you get to the point where you're having a hard time discerning the actual truth, then go back to the Bible. There is no your truth or my truth. That's illogical. There's only one truth per the definition of the word. There can't be more than one. Our moral compass must be rooted in God's love and his word for us. In Hollywood, every TV project has what they call a show Bible. I mean, I wrote one for community relations. This is a divining rod for the series. It becomes bigger and bigger as the series goes on. So a long show has a big show Bible. And this becomes the truth, or the true north, that every decision that the writers make for one season or 7 seasons, they look back at the show Bible and say, does this jive? God gave us a show Bible for life. It has to be our true north. I love the verse, Psalm 119, 160. All your words are true. All your righteous laws are eternal. Simple. Number 2, be present in the moment. That was be prepared, be present in the moment. All right, this one is easy in the illustration. In a life or death moment like that, you stay in the moment. Unless you're Wex. and he was on the phone. I really did have a partner named Wex, and he really was hilarious. Very quick story about Wex that made me laugh this morning on my drive here. He was actually senior to me, and I was about a year on. Just got over to the tactical unit, and we had accomplished something good, and he wanted to celebrate with a blizzard from Dairy Queen. I used to be the grunt of jokes because I took my lunchbox with me everywhere, and it was filled with healthy stuff. Guys would eat anything they could, so Wex forced me to have a blizzard. So we just got to Dairy Queen, and this was a big deal because in Phoenix it's 600 degrees. And just sat down with a blizzard when the radio went off, and it was right around the corner, and it was something stupid, and Wex knew these folks, so he answered on the radio, said that we would take that call so that a patrol unit didn't have to waste their time. Those guys were so busy in the area of Phoenix where we were. So we answered up. We get there. I was always driving, so he could talk on the phone. Pulled up, get out of the car. I see these 2 people arguing, and I hear, Andy, go get your blizzard. And I look over, and he's got his blizzard, and he's walking up his car. I look at him, and I said, well, I was just going to go, shut up, go get your blizzard. And I went and got my blizzard, and there's 2 cops in here eating our blizzards, listening to this nonsense. I hope this was back before they videoed everything you did as a cop. I hope no one has that on video. So be present in the moment with your spouse. I had to learn this the hard way. I mean, who am I kidding? I've been married almost 24 years. I'm still learning this. To use that illustration, I would call my wife after some craziness and never tell her what had just happened, but I just needed to call her. And she'd need to tell me about something that one of the kids just did, or about a conversation she had with one of the neighbors. Or I'd come home from work and she had been with babies all day, and she'd have thousands of words that needed to be said. And I was her target for that, or her receiver of all of those words. Could I not listen? Could I tell her about my day and what had just happened? Do I want her to worry about all that stuff every day? Could I imply that the events I had been through were more important than hers? And thus would I not be listening to her? No. For our spouses, listening is connecting. Do you guys have a date night? Do you guys have a cell phone policy in that date night? Do you guys have plans to get away? Those are hard questions, right? And I'm not good at them either. But when I am good at it, that's when my marriage is the best. With your kids, just try. If you leave here with 2 words, just try. That's the advice I've given to countless of younger dads who have asked me for wisdom because they think I know what I'm doing, and they don't realize that the truth is none of us know what we're doing. Just try. Be involved in their lives. Ask questions. Be interested in what they're interested in and ask why. Don't let them have a device, or if they have to have a device, don't let them do whatever they want on it. We think that we're being cool by letting them do what they want on their device. We are not. We are not called to be their friends. We're called to be their dads and protect them. And it's a scary place out there on those devices. Speaking of devices, put it down. I learned early on when caring for little ones, I could either be a good dad or I could be good at whatever I was looking at on my stupid smartphone. I couldn't be both. Kids know when they're not the most important thing going on in that moment. They know it when they're really, really little, and they know it when they're 18 years old. You can't multitask with your kids. Last thing on this, in my experience, it's the little things that make up the relationships. I say it like this. It's time on your backyard swing, not time on the symphony swings. Anybody know what I'm talking about there? Anybody know where the symphony swings are? Disney. We've been on those symphony swings that swing around. It's time on your backyard swing, not time on the symphony swings. What I mean there is, we love Disney as much as the next family. We've made several trips while we were living in LA, and now the pilgrimage to Disney World. And yes, those are fun, and exhausting, and stressful, and expensive. Every time I'm at Disney, I empathize with a dad who is just at his wit's end. There are always those guys who are losing their minds, especially Disneyland maybe, with a lot of those LA dads. Stereotypes wouldn't exist if they were true. Some of these poor guys. I remember being at the playground in LA, and the gentleman next to me had to have been late 60s. We both had 2-year-olds. And he was exhausted. I hate to say it, but for those busy, successful, priority elsewhere dads, I never understand why they think if they don't spend time with their kids throughout the year, then magically that 1 week Disney World staying in a small hotel room altogether is going to be great. Why should they expect their kids to just magically connect with them when they haven't connected during the year? Don't get me wrong, travel is amazing, vacations are a gift, and Disney really can be magical, but it's the little things. Pushing her on a swing a few minutes every day that you both will remember later in life, and not the big spend of trying to buy happiness once or twice a year. This one is very fresh to me. My oldest is 18, and he's a freshman at a military university out in New York, and all of a sudden he was gone. 18 years seems like a long time. And then all of a sudden I was begging for a few more months. Did I spend enough time with him? Did I teach him enough? And now he's a man. This happens. Gosh, I know I sound like an old grandpa when I say that, but don't waste those minutes. It's the backyard swing, not the symphony swing. With friends, extended family, and coworkers. There's a reason why I put these in order. Spouse, kids, everybody else, in various degrees of those circles of trust. Spouse has to be number one, and I realize that sometimes things happen, but if you can work on that relationship, it's the best work that you can possibly do. If that's not number one, then it affects every other relationship in your life. Kids, number two. They have to be more important than your coworkers. They have to be more important than that big deal. But then, when we get to coworkers, friends, family, when you do connect, don't multitask. Don't take time away from your spouse and your kids to drive somewhere and hang out with your buddies and then stare at your phone. Don't waste that time. They want it. But it is good to have friends. It is good to have connection. It is good to have fellowship. But we only have so many minutes. I like to think of energy points. If I've slept well and I get SS, this might hit too close to home because I enjoy a good glass of wine too. I call it SS, sober sleep. It's like our superpower, sober sleep. If I can get 6, 7, 8, I don't know when the last time I got 8 hours of sober sleep, and wake up in the morning, you may have 100 energy points, right? If you don't sleep enough, or if you had wine the night before, or something like that, maybe you wake up with 80% of your energy points. But you spend those energy points all day long. Who gets them? You know, maybe your workout takes 10, but maybe it gives 5 back. Maybe your first conversation of the day with someone takes 7. By the time you get home from work, if that's the only time you see your spouse and your kids, where are you at? You have 15 points left? Are you spending 8 of them watching the Bears? You know, maybe the Bears deserve it, maybe they don't. I don't know. So those are those minutes, those are those energy points. And lastly, guys, that was be prepared, that was be present. Lastly is be prosperous. Be prosperous. This is the last guidepost from our crazy cop story. The tie-in here for me was simply learning the lesson that it's okay to succeed. It's okay to be good. If you trust God has you in the right place, then consider that your talents and your abilities, it's possible that God designed you to excel at what you're doing. It's not only possible, it's probable. I knew that 100% I was in the right place during this chapter of my life, and I'm grateful and humbled that I was the person to stand in harm's way many times to help someone, and it was not another officer who, even with good intentions, sadly, was not trying hard to excel at what they were doing every day in their career. We've all seen those officers, just like in our jobs. We know those coworkers who are not trying to excel. Be open to God's pulling. In 24 years of marriage, we have moved 22 times. And I don't wish that on anyone. Moving is always miserable. So be careful of taking my advice here. Those haven't always been big life moves. My wife's in real estate, so some of those have been business moves. But some of them have been life shifts. I've always believed that when you feel a pull, it's not up to God to take the next step. It's up to us to pray continually, listen to God, and step forward. Ask Him for a clear yes or a clear no, and discern the answers you get from the decision-making process. But if the direction pulls you, it vibes with your values, and you don't get a closed door, then be open to the real possibility that it's God nudging you into the next adventure. No, this does not necessarily mean a new career adventure or a life shift like it has for me. It could be stepping up to coach your kid in synchronized swimming or ballet because nobody else is doing it. It could be joining a small group. It could be going on a service trip. Be open to God's nudging. And number 2 in this is whatever you do can be your ministry. I've always loved the quote, people may doubt what you say, but they will believe what you do. People may doubt what you say, but they will believe what you do. You prospering and finding success financially and in other ways is not contrary to God's will if you are talking to Him, listening to Him, and living accordingly. People are watching. They notice when you are different. Eventually, they may hear you say something about church, and then they watch and they listen even closer. But I can't tell you how many times in my life, after knowing a group of people, and sometimes not even a close friend, how many times a teammate or a coworker or a fellow parent has come up to me in a locker room or in a parking lot or on the phone and just wanted to tell me something. And almost always, it's been a guy who messed up somehow with his wife or with his family or some other way. Or a death in the family or something else detrimental to their current way of life that doesn't make sense anymore in their old perspective. That's when all the time that you have spent trying to live according to the ongoing conversation in your life with God, that's when it becomes your ministry. To me, that's always been what resonated from the verse, Galatians 6:9. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. That harvest could just be that conversation. Finally, your success, reputation, and your legacy is built around One good decision at a time. This last thought is going to sound morbid. Final thought here, but it's not intended to be morbid. I have seen a lot of dead bodies. And almost none of those people expected that day to be their last day. Just want that to set in for a second because I've thought about it way too many times in my life. In fact, I have died myself on screen 3 times. And that's why they say it's one of the hardest things to do as an actor, because in any scene that you guys see in a show or a TV, you film that 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, from all different angles, all different lighting. You messed this up. That guy wasn't doing it right. You weren't doing it right. The director wanted to see something else. So 20 times of dying, every single time has to be unexpected. No one ever blows up in Hawaii Five-0 or gets shot at Magnum PI or anything like that and expects that to happen and expect it to be his last breath. You have to portray that that was unexpected. In truth, that's what happens in life. It's unexpected. Why would I make such a morbid point? Because I believe we are not promised 90 years on this earth, or even 10 more years, or even 10 more days. We have to stop living as if we have plenty of time to be more loving husbands, or more supportive dads, or not invest our time and resources in more impactful ways. Life is a series of decisions. If we make one good decision at a time, according to the lifelong, ongoing conversation with God, then we will leave a legacy. I think about this a lot. How do we want to be remembered? Don't get tired of doing the right thing.